In a corner of the universe, a cryopod slowly materializes. Inside sleeps Annie, who had been exiled to the depths of space. Only now has she been captured by a spacecraft. Upon awakening, Annie still maintains her previous appearance. She doesn't know where she is or why she's here. Looking at the bloodstains on her hands, she recalls everything that happened before. There's also a bloody dagger in the cryopod. She tries to open the door, but no matter how much effort she exerts, it remains sealed. Just as she's breaking down, the dagger in her hand flies uncontrollably toward the door handle, and the door instantly opens. She walks through long corridors to reach the ship's control room. The control room is completely empty. After a series of fear and panic, Annie collects herself and begins questioning the ship. However, the ship's response shocks her deeply. She's the only passenger aboard the entire vessel. There is no one else. It seems this ship was custom-made for her. After the initial surprise, Annie attempts to contact the ship heading to Terminus, only to learn that the Deliverance was decommissioned in Imperial Year 12,072. It is now Imperial Year 12,102. This means she has been drifting in space for over 30 years. Annie asks the ship where they are, but the system indicates it cannot recognize the command. No matter how she tries to contact the outside, the only response is authorization required. After calming down, Annie retrieves information about Hari's death. She learns that Hari's body was ejected into space, while David and she herself were labeled as murderers. David was exiled to space, where his life came to an end. In utter despair, Annie grieves deeply and wants to end her own life. Just as she's about to act, the ship lurches, disrupting her movement. Coming to her senses, Annie begins to pull herself together. Since the ship cannot directly tell her their location, she'll use her intelligence to outmaneuver this machine. Through a series of operations, calculations, donning a spacesuit for external observation, she finally confirms their destination is Helicon, Hari Seldon's homeworld. At this moment, something eerie occurs. Annie discovers two pools of blood on the floor. However, when she approaches, the blood disappears. Then she sees the scene of Hari being killed. For a moment, Annie cannot distinguish between reality and illusion. The ship's artificial intelligence tells her this is a quantum consciousness virtual projection of Hari. However, Hari's consciousness program has malfunctioned. Trapped in the past in an endless loop, Annie calls out desperately and finally awakens Hari. The restored Hari reveals the truth to Annie. Before leaving the shuttle, he implanted a data unit in his brain, synchronized with the port in David's dagger. It recorded all her thoughts and memories. This way, even if her physical body died, she would be reborn in another form of consciousness. In other words, Hari orchestrated his own murder, intending for David to leave the ship with the knife and rendezvous with her on this vessel. But the execution went awry. Annie, who witnessed the murder, was labeled an accomplice. David chose to sacrifice himself to save Annie. Learning of David's death, Hari once again falls into program chaos. But how did Annie ultimately escape? Watch the original film to find out.